I grew up with this thinking of like, okay, life fucking sucks. Like if it's like that, why would I want to deal with that shit and be miserable sober when I could fucking be miserable high, you know? And then when I got sober, you know, it's like, that's why I say it's such a trick to me, because what I've been wanting, like a dream that I had that seemed so far-fetched, because I'm just this little fat white boy that lived in Connecticut, and I had this dream when I was 12. It was just such a far-fetched thing, and it just didn't seem possible. And then when the addiction came into play, like I said, the dream went out the window, you know. And then all of a sudden, when I had that spiritual experience, and then I literally let go of the wheel and I let other people control it, then it falls on my lap. You know,
that was your bottom. You know, your bottom wasn't being homeless in Connecticut. Your bottom was actually asking for help. You know, I talk about it ad nauseum. But like I personally, I always say all of our bottoms are the same. Our bottom is the day that you surrender, and you're like. Welcome to the show, Vinny.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Dude, it's so cool that like I get to sit down and talk to you, because like I always saw you around back in the day when I was living in LA, and then I saw you recently pop up on Dopey with doing daily reflections and shit.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, you know what? I don't know his story. You know, like I saw you around, and I think we would go to a couple of places, the same places, you know, as each other, but we didn't know each other at all.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and I was like, oh shit, he's on Dopey. I gotta hit him up and see if he wants to do my show now. Thanks for coming on, dude. I appreciate it. What's your sober date, Vin?
February 10th, 2018. So I'm coming up on 4 years.
Shit, dude. Congrats, man.
Yeah, thank you.
So yeah, when I saw you around then, you were like 3-4 months sober then, because I got to LA April 25th, 2018.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was like May when I started rolling around CA and shit, and I would see you around. So that's awesome, dude. Okay, so what was going on for you February 9th, 2018?
Fuck, dude. So I mean, we could. It's a super long story, but I'll try to get the most important points in the shortest amount of time possible. But I'm originally from Connecticut, and I was shooting dope for a very long time. And the last like 2-3 years of it, I was homeless out there.
Homeless in New England is no joke in comparison to LA. Like I'm in PA, bro, right now, and I grew up in Jersey. So like, and I lived in Massachusetts for years. I lived in Plymouth and all around. Mm-hmm. So like I know how those New England winters are, bro. So like what part of Connecticut were you? Like the western side, or were you on the seaside?
No, I was right on the shore. So I grew up in Old Saybrook, but after high school, when shit kind of started hitting the fan and my addiction really got the best of me, I started moving down south the shore a little bit. So like the New Haven area, East Haven. And that's where I became homeless for a couple of years. And I was, you know, like shit got really bad. I don't want to get too crazy in depth with it, but, you know, it's like the typical homeless, no money, no clothes, no nothing. The only thing I care about is shooting dope and scoring my next bag to shoot more dope. Luckily, I had a friend who's still a very close friend of mine today, who whenever his dad would go to work early in the morning, him and his mom would sneak me in the house. They were my using buddies too, but they were nice enough to let me come in the house, shower, eat,
get some warmth.
Yeah, get some warmth and have a house to get high in, you know. And then one night, a buddy of mine, or a past buddy of mine, who I used to get high with a long time ago, he came out here to LA to get sober like 6 years prior, and he ended up getting sober and found out that I was struggling somehow, and somehow got my number, because even when I was homeless, I still had one of those Obama phones, you know. So somehow found my number and got a hold of me and was like, "Hey man, if you want to get sober, I'll fly out to LA." And the only thing that was like going through my mind when he offered that was like, it's easier to be homeless in LA than it is to be on the East Coast. Like, I don't I'll take advantage of your money to buy me a flight. I will go to your rehab. I don't really care if you're making money or whatever. Like, I'll go to your rehab for a little bit, and then eventually, I had no intentions of staying sober.
Was he a broker?
Yeah. But when that happened, I didn't know about brokering at the time,
Neither did I.
Yeah. So I was like, fuck it. Yeah. So I took his flight. He put me in a rehab in Anaheim. And I was there for a few weeks before I ended up getting kicked out. And I made my way to Newport Beach. And I was just, I was homeless on Newport for a little bit. And I just was slowly making my way north. And I ended up on Skid Row for a few months. And then I was like in and out of treatment. My mom was still paying for my private insurance at the time. So I think I was just like I was 30 or 29 or something. So my mom was still paying for my insurance. So I was taking advantage of that, just using that for like a bed to sleep in, some food to eat for a little bit, and then just go right back out. And then, it was like how it's a vicious cycle. You go in, you come out. You go in,
that's the name of the game. My roommate, I was very confused at one point when I got into treatment, and I'm kicking, oxys and all that shit. And my roommate's like, "Oh yeah, my DOC is heroin. I'm not taking subs or anything." He's never withdrawn a day the entire time we're there. And then I come to find out it's because he only ever leaves rehab, gets high once, and then pisses dirty, and then goes back into rehab again and has roof and food. Yeah. So, like, I get it. It's just the name of the game. He wasn't from LA. He just ended up there. Didn't want to go back to his hometown because he had warrants waiting for him. Yeah. So you just stay in the system, and they can't touch you with the other system.
Exactly. I was lucky to the point where like I didn't have any court shit hanging over my head. I just had no intentions of getting sober. I literally accepted that this was going to be my life. So when you come into acceptance of something like that, you really don't give a fuck what happens. So I was going in and out. I was going back to Skid Row, going in and out, going back to Skid Row, and eventually I was in this sober living in Playa, and me and a couple guys had this whole idea that we were gonna use the food card that they give us to go buy a little bit of food and then get Ubers with it, and then just leave and go get high. And we were waiting out front for our Uber, and the management came out front, found out what we were doing. They allowed them to go back in, but kicked me out. So I was like, oh, fuck it, I'm gonna go high by myself. And then while I was waiting for the Uber, that's when I had what I call my first spiritual experience before even doing the steps or anything like that. Is I had this very vivid whisper of my fucking one of my best friends who passed away from an overdose like 4 years before that, and the whisper is, enough is enough. You got to stop. I was 30 years old, and so when I had that whisper, I called the program director of the IOP that I was going to, and I was just like, listen, give me one more chance. Still in my mind, I didn't think I was ready to stop using, but that whisper made me call the program director. So he put me in the house that I eventually got sober at, designed for recovery, and that's where I met my now best friend and roommate, and I work with them. We filmed together as Zack, and we just clicked, we clicked very, like, as soon as I got there, we clicked. We're into the same shit. I knew who he was because he had a big online presence, and I was a fan already, and we were into the same shit, and he needed a camera guy, and I have experience with cameras because I grew up filming skateboarding, and pretty much the same shit that we do now, just dumb shit,
Well, no wonder why you were a fan of him. You were already into this. You were already into it. You know what I mean? You were already into skateboarding. So why wouldn't you be into it? And obviously you're into filmography because I see this shit behind you because that's what I'm into too. You don't just get into podcasting just for the fun of it. I enjoy the nerdy side of the behind the scenes of all the editing process and having fun and find new ways to fuck around. Like, that's my way of being creative now. Like, I did stand-up comedy in addiction. And, when I got sober, I started talking a lot at meetings. Shit, you probably even heard me talk at meetings because I talk so much. But that was my way of practicing in front of a crowd again.
Totally, yeah.
But I did stand-up once in sobriety, and then, like, it didn't feel right. And then, like, I ended up relapsing with alcohol anyway a couple months later. So now I'm, like, taking my time into it. And now for me, this is my stand-up comedy now. This is my chance to, like, find some lightness in our dark and make people laugh about our histories, because you know how it is, bro. We laugh at our history now. The further you get from something, the easier it is to laugh at it.
Oh, for sure.
But there's so many people that they don't tell their story, and I get them on the show, and it's their first time telling it. and I get them laughing about it, and I get them, feeling okay and not feeling as bad.
Yeah.
Like it's so important to look at your history and laugh, because you can't change it. Literally, you can't do shit about it but laugh at the ridiculousness that was your life.
Yeah.
So
it's like what we do, this has always been my passion ever since maybe 11 years old. When I discovered skateboarding, and then especially like when Jackass came out in 2000.
Oh yeah, dude, we're the same age. That shit was huge in the 90s.
It was like what I dreamed of doing, just filming skateboarding.
Did you see Jonah Hill's movie?
Which one?
Mid 90s.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, that was my life. It's like and so it's crazy because like the people who we work with and who I'm friends with now, I've had posters on my walls growing up. So it all happened because I got sober. So it's a trip. And I would study. These skate videos that I watch over and over and over again. I would study them. I wouldn't watch it because I love the skateboarding tricks and the culture behind it, but I love how it's put together and how it's made and what kind of cameras they use and what angles they get, and look at the lighting and the sound and all that shit. That made me enjoy it even more than the actual entertainment behind it, right?
Yeah. So, right now, my wife's watching this laughing because this is all the nerdy shit that I point out in movies that she eventually now points out to me. Yeah. Like stuff that nobody else looks at. Yeah. She's now pointing out to me because she knows that's like my nerd side that I need and feeds me. So dude, that's like, and to get that kind of bond, to go from like you're hopping around treatment center to treatment center, and then all of a sudden to get a friendship and a bond with someone. You guys, you're in the thick of it together, and you're going to do this together, and you're going to have the same kind of goals. And that's what it's really all about early in sobriety, is like finding somebody else you can connect with and go through it together. Get a sponsor, somebody who has experience, but you have to have people to meeting hop with.
Exactly.
To go around and fuck around. You guys were always having, that's what I was saying. Like when we first started talking, you guys were always having fun in the parking lots, doing crazy shit, weird shit, recording shit.
Yeah. So so for me, I consider myself very lucky, right? Because what I love to do, my passion, what I've dreamt about doing ever since I was 11 years old, it fell on my lap. Early sobriety, right? Just a couple months in, fell on my lap. I didn't come to LA looking for it. I didn't come out here to look for what I wanted to do. I came out here looking because it was better weather to be homeless in, right? So it's like, so this shit literally fucking fell on my lap. And it's, of course I'm totally with going to meetings, and I'm totally with doing the steps and getting a sponsor and finding a fellowship. But what was most important to me was finding your purpose, right? It's like something to make sure that you wake up every morning and have a fucking purpose. That's what's most important to me. And
we're still addicts, bro. We're still addicts. That's the thing, and I was telling my mom this earlier. She, because she knows that I spend like 90 hours a week in my studio. And I was like, Mom, I just obsess. I'm an obsessive person. Yeah. So whether I'm addicted to trying to find money to get drugs and get high all day, or whether I'm addicted to just like connecting with people and putting out stories, either way, it's an obsession. Anything I do, I'm going to obsess over it, especially if I love it and I find meaning in it and I find fulfillment in it. I'm going to obsess over it crazy.
Yeah.
So it's just what happens.
I'm the same way, dude. I'm the same way. It was literally like, because this what we do, like I said, it was my passion ever since I was young. When I started to get into when my addiction really got a hold of me for fucking 10 years, time flies. One day I'm fucking 20 years old, traveling and going to college parties. The next thing you know, I'm fucking 26 years old, homeless in Vermont. You know what I mean? And then like the passion and the dream eventually slowly goes out the window, and you tend to forget about it, right? Yeah. And then so when this happened to me, I was like, holy shit! Like 3 months after meeting Zack, he wanted me to film a video for him. And to see how I did on with the cameras and everything, and that video did very well, and all my heroes were and idols and heroes and people that I've looked up to my whole life are like seeing this video, commenting, sharing, liking, and it had my name attached to it. So I'm like, holy fuck, like this is crazy. And then just a couple months later, like we're going to Chicago to film promos for the TV show that he had on MTV, you know, and I'm fucking 4 months sober at the time, fresh off the streets, you know. So it's like the whole thing it was just mind blowing to me. And then like it was like a snowball effect, you know. It was like, dude, all this shit that has happened to me, that I like, this crazy life that I have, happened to me while I was in sober living. I just left sober living. It was a year. I have been gone from sober living. It was a year, December 10th of 2021. So just a month ago.
Oh shit.
I was in sober living for 3 years. You know,
well,
so
you were a house manager, right?
Yeah. I was a client for 9 months. I was a driver for like 2 months. I was house manager for like a year and a half, and then I was operations manager for like 6 months, and then I was program director.
Well, yeah, you and Zack were basically me and Jace, and who ended up with you.
Yeah.
You know, and him and I went to and he's supposed to be on too soon. I just talked to him last night. He's moving to Oregon again. But he's doing really good, luckily. Good. Like it's, you know, because it was up and down early on.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, you know, you were with Zack and you guys were both staying good, and then I'm freaking out trying to keep him good. You know, because he got me. When I got into rehab, bro, it was my first time in rehab ever, and I was coming from Jersey. I don't know what the fuck to expect.
Yeah.
And, you know, Jace is like 6-7 years younger than me, but he took me under his wing. And because he had been brokered all over LA in treatment. So he knew the deal. We played horse all day long. We fucked around, played basketball, and we talked. And that's where I got that like bond that like I was looking for. And eventually I got that bond with other people too that are still sober to this day, you know, especially from LA. When I relapsed, they were still there for me.
Yeah.
You know, I had my relapse. They were all still in my corner and let me know if you need anything, you know. And then when I started this up was like in May of this year. I have a meeting center where I live. Yeah. And we do AA, NA, mental health meetings, trauma, all that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And that was right around the time. Do you know Jules Muck?
Yeah, of course. She's from Connecticut, where I'm from.
Well, she lived in Connecticut. Well, yeah, that's her, and we know the bunnies.
Yeah.
She was in my studio back in October because she was every time she drives through PA, she stops here because we're off the highway and she crashes before she goes to New York. Yeah. So that's one of my sober buddies that still to this day, I'm about to interview her and Kyle for my couples episodes for February. So
is she still with Kyle?
They're engaged now, bro. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. I was in IOP with Kyle.
Oh, dude, it's such a small world.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he's doing all this shit. They just got a house in like Santa something, but it's not. And he's redoing a studio for it. Yeah, they're fucking killing. They have muck.
I remember when he got the neck, the bunny tattoo on his neck.
Yeah.
I remember that shit.
Oh yeah, I was with Kyle when he got like this ghost on his hand that got all fucked up.
Yeah.
And, like everyone would get so pissed at me because she would give me perfect tattoos in her front yard, and then everybody else she would fuck up. Like everyone would be cursing at me in her story.
Yeah.
Like, fuck you, JD. You took all the talent ones. Like, but that's the kind of recovery I needed, was just some fuck around in a front yard in Venice and do some tattoos.
Yeah.
Like, you get it. Like, did you get most of yours before or after?
After I got sober. So it like the first year in sober living, I got like some small ones here and there. And like growing up, I always wanted to be tatted, right? But
drawing on yourself and shit all the time.
And then like the first year, I'd get like some small ones here and there. But then like I started getting hit up by like tattoo artists, and this one dude, he was a fan of our stuff, and he was just like, hey man, come down, I'll fucking tattoo you all you want. So I was just like, fuck yeah. So he's done like 90% of my body. And I'm so grateful and so blessed. Like I don't like, of course I pay him. Like I don't have to, you know. And then
tips.
And then like I have this other guy, Interstate Ink. His name's Church. It's a sober tattoo shop, and they're all in recovery. Most of their clients are all in recovery. And I'm producing his podcast right now. And I was living in Texas earlier this year for a few months. And
Austin.
No, I was in Corpus Christi.
Everybody else was in Austin from LA, so I figured him would guess that first.
Yeah. And then I took a road trip here to LA to film with some people, and I guess the shop was following me on Instagram, and they're like, oh, you're in town, come by the shop, we'll tattoo you. So I was like, all right, cool. So I started building a relationship with them, and they're the ones that tattooed the portrait of Zack on my shoulder, and then and then we built this really good relationship, and they just started a podcast that I'm producing. And
what's the name of it? You can plug it.
Yeah, it's Broken Crayons. Broken Crayons. It won't be out for a while. We just started filming recently, but yeah, it's cool. It's like I produce a lot of people's podcasts out here, and this one's a little bit different because it's like they're getting tattooed while podcasting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
We sat down, had a long creative meeting on how it should go and what kind of people we should interview, and
make sure they're picking tattoos that are under an hour and not like a back piece.
Yeah, exactly.
Free party episode.
It's crazy because the first episode that we filmed, like the guy was getting it done on his calf, so I had to really adapt to the room on how I would get the right angles with this guy being on his stomach,
awkward,
yeah. So it's been a learning experience for this one, but because like every other podcast that I do, it's just like a normal like a show style, like you're at a desk, you have mics, and but it's been fun for sure.
Yeah, I think that's awesome though to tap into your creative side. For me, it's like being a puzzle. I help other people that are sober with their podcasts that are trying to have one. I tell them off the bat, listen, it's consistency and it's tough and it's not easy. Bro, don't look at the numbers, like don't get caught up in numbers.
Out of everything that I do, podcasting it's a lot of fucking work, dude. It's I didn't even know I enjoyed podcasting this much. The first time I started working with one was with Andy Roy. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he had a podcast. He's like a legendary skateboarder from like late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay.
And it was the first like big podcast that I did. Like we had guests like Bam on, Danny Way was on, Wee Man was on, Brandon Novak was on. Like I had all these big guests, and I was filming. I was pretty much producing at the time. And then I stopped doing podcasts for a while, and I didn't really like listening to podcasts for a while. But then I really started getting into listening to podcasts early 2021, and then I moved to Texas and I started my own podcast. And it's like the consistency is gnarly. The amount of work that you put into is gnarly. I dropped like 10 grand on like art and fucking and equipment, and because my addict mind is I have to have the best of everything, you know what I mean? Like
I gotta get the Shure mics, and I gotta get this, and
exactly,
I gotta get that,
exactly.
I gotta get the Sony cams and the mount.
Exactly. So it's like I
had that cart, bro. I just couldn't afford that cart.
Yeah. I mean, I've been blessed enough to where I could be in the position to do that kind of dumb thing, but yeah, dude, it's a lot of work. And then when I came back to LA because Zack called me when I was down there, and he's like, hey, we want to do another show and we want you to be in it. And I was just like, all right, fuck it. It looks like I'm coming back to LA, and that's when I realized that LA is the place for me. I thought I was ready to, because I was in a sober living I was living in the garage of a sober living for 3 years. I'm 30 now. I'm 34. I thought what I wanted was peace and quiet, and like I wanted my reason for going down to Texas was I was going to buy a ranch, and I was renting down there while I was looking at property, and I thought I wanted that. I thought I wanted to be able to have my own piece of land, do whatever the fuck I want.
Adrian Greener did from Entourage.
Yeah, exactly.
He literally has a fucking ranch in Texas now, and he posts about it all the time. Like, oh shit, his name's Vinny too.
Yeah. So it's like, I thought that's what I wanted, but I love what we do too much, and I feel like, especially right now, my career in entertainment is just starting. Like, yeah, the last 3 years I've done a lot of fucking cool shit and worked with a lot of cool people, but I really wasn't. I was more behind the scenes, and I made money, but not that much money. But right now it's like starting to really blow the fuck up, and So I was like, you know what, fuck it, dude. I'm willing to pay $5 a gallon for gas. I'm willing to pay fucking a $3,500 mortgage payment. You know, like I'm willing to do that. You know, just because I love it so much. And so when I got back out to LA, it was just by word of mouth. You know, people like saying, oh, this Vinny's good at doing this. He's doing good at this. And then I started doing this podcast for she's a nutritionist for the celebrities, and I started doing her podcast, and it's very fun when you're producing a good podcast. It's very lucrative. So I was making really fucking good money, and I like doing it, and I like production. So I started thinking, I was like, I have like a lot of celebrity friends and like people that like doing entertainment. So I started making calls to all these other people, being like, hey, you have a cool background. You have a lot of cool friends. Have you ever thought about doing a podcast? And everybody's been like, yeah, dude, I've been thinking of that for so long. And I was like, well, this is what I do. So I started my own business. I started a production company with my partner and best friend, and he's also my manager. And we started our own production company. And now I produce 3 people's podcast right now. And then me and Zack are doing something soon. And it's been treating us very fucking good. And that's like my side stuff. You know, that's not even like my main stuff that I'm doing. Yeah. And it's crazy. This is the worst excuse for not hitting meetings and not being like emerged in the program and stuff, is like, oh, I'm too busy, or oh, I'm doing that. But that's what's been happening, you know. And it's the worst fucking excuse. And I'm not like, oh, you have to hit meetings, or you have to fucking do step work, or you have to call your sponsor. I'm not that kind of person. But I feel like after a long time has passed of me not being in the fellowship, small behaviors start to pop out that remind
places and other places though.
Yes. So then I have to reel myself back and be like, okay, let me get back to it, you know.
But this is a meeting, bro. This is a meeting. You know what I mean? So that's the thing, is you're surrounding yourself. You know, people always say you're the average of the 5 you're always around, right? You know, so you're around people that are sober, that have like-minded goals, and aren't thinking about getting fucked up all day. Yeah. And that's the biggest change. That's why you went to rehab. That's why you did the steps. That's why you went into the program, was to learn how to live a life beyond your wildest dreams.
Yeah.
You know, so I wouldn't get caught up in, because you're still surrounding yourself. It's not like you're hanging around with people that are. You just mentioned Brandon Novak. I mean, that dude's doing amazing fucking things in Delaware right now.
Yeah.
You know, because that's kind of my area. You know, I grew up a half an hour from that area in Delaware. I grew up outside of Camden. And I think he just opened his 3rd sober living. Or
his
something
second, his second one. Yeah.
Because the other one was doing so well. Like that right there alone just goes to tell me that you are still active in your recovery. Just if you're not hitting meetings, you're not hitting meetings.
No, totally. You know? I agree with that. It's just like for example, right? It's like my birthday was in October, and the day my birthday, I fucking woke up and something happened to my back, and I couldn't stand up straight. I couldn't walk. I was in so much fucking pain. And the first thought was like, the girl that I was seeing at the time, she was a normie, and she had like a bottle of Tramadol left over from a car accident that she got into. And my first thought was like, oh shit, I have to go on a helicopter ride today. I want to be okay. I want to be able to enjoy this. So let me just take a Tramadol. And it's like the conveniency of it, you know? So it's like those kind of behaviors, like that's a kind of behavior that I like want to stay far away from. Like, oh, just because it's convenient for me, you know what I mean? Like, I since I've been sober, I've been hurt a lot, especially with what we do. You know?
Yeah, I was gonna say, you guys literally hurt yourselves for a fucking living.
And then I look at like a hero of mine, Steve-O, you know, like he's gotten some gnarly shit, and he's been sober for 13 years. He's gone through some gnarly fucking injuries. What
did he have? Like 13 screws in his ankle that he took ibuprofen for? Like, I watch all his videos too, you know. Yeah. Especially because he's sober, but you know, and here's shit. But he posted that video a couple months ago where he did like his top 10 most like the craziest injuries he's had. Yeah. And he talked about that one. He goes, because I'm a sober dude and I only need Advil. Yeah. You know, and that told me everything I needed to know about mind over matter. Yeah. Just in that right there. Yeah. Like I was like, dude, if Steve-O, and I know he's taken a lot of hits, but so have I.
Yeah.
You know, if Steve-O can just be like, yeah, put those screws in my ankle, I was gonna pop some aspirin, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Then literally, you know, when I had surgery back in June, I had my gallbladder out because I fucked up everything from all the like oxys over the years.
Yeah.
I was starting to bile daily, so I lost all stomach tissue, gallbladder function, and 3 years into being, you know, away from pills, I had to get it taken out.
Yeah.
And well, COVID really slowed things up for a year. It should have got taken out last summer.
Yeah.
But they gave me fentanyl when I was under, and I told them not to. I said, I'm a drug addict. Do not give me anything.
Yeah.
And I woke up and I was like, I am really high right now. And the nurse is like, no, it's just anesthesia, honey. I said, no, this is not anesthesia. I know this high. Yeah. And then the doctor's like, oh, yeah, we had to shoot him twice with fentanyl and once with the Lauda because he looked uncomfortable. I'm like, dude, you know what's going to happen to me? He's like, you're going to be fine. You haven't touched opiates in years. I said, you don't know that. Yeah. And it's outpatient surgery. I get into the parking lot, immediately start throwing up bile again. I was throwing up, withdrawing for 18 straight hours, bro. Yeah. Like that was a freebie, obviously, because I was under when they did shot me. Yeah. I told them not to. Yeah. But still, that was a great reminder of like I never even fucked with fentanyl when I was out there, but that was a great reminder of it is not what I want.
No,
like it's not the feeling I want anymore. It's not how to escape anymore. Like, you know. And you know how it is. You get some bad news. Like, how do you get through some bad shit now being sober compared to before? Before we would run straight to the drug, right? You hear something even bad like, oh, the fucking Patriots lost. I'm going to go get as high as possible.
This episode is sponsored by MJ's Progress Not Perfection Meeting Center Association. We are in our meeting center where we do all these meetings for mental health and addiction. I can do this podcast anywhere. I can do this at home. I can do this in a closet. I can do this in a basement. It doesn't matter. All I need is somebody else to talk to about addiction and recovery. What I can't do from anywhere is help people with their addiction and their mental health problems. So if you can help out, you know, we do have a Venmo, we have a Cash App, we have a PayPal, we have an address you can send a check to, and, you know, all the money that gets donated goes towards rent, goes towards keeping the lights on, and goes towards keeping the internet on. So please, you know, if you can give $5, $10, $20, it doesn't matter. Anything you can is so appreciated. And if you are a local business, if you're a national business, whatever, and you want to be a part of what we're doing, you know, you can reach out to me and we can talk about how you can be a sponsor. But I'll let you get back to the episode.
So, you know, how do you deal with like horrible news now?
So, like you kind of, okay, so in my addiction, when I was using, I would just use those situations, like bad news situations, as excuses to get high, right? Like you kind of just said it, like, oh, the Patriots lost, let me go get high.
But guess what? They won. You're gonna say, oh, they won, I'm gonna get high.
Exactly. No, exactly. So like I would just like justify it in my head, that like it's not because I like it might have a little to do with like numbing the emotional pain, but I don't even think, for me personally, I don't even think it was that. I just love the feeling of getting high so much that I would just use any excuse to use the substance, you know, like, and
when did you start using though?
I started using opiates when I was 21.
Dude, we started at the same time, 2008.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
When's your birthday? Because
mine's October 17th, 87.
Okay, yeah, I'm September 29th, 86.
Yeah.
And I got into opiates October of 2008 when I was 22. Mm-hmm. And because alcohol stopped working. And somebody's like, hey, I got some bananas, which were Perk 10s.
Yeah.
And so I popped 2, and it was off to the fucking races for 9.5 years.
Yeah, so for me, it was like I obviously started like everyone else smoking weed and drinking at like maybe like 15. My mom's a heroin addict, an ex-heroin addict. And pretty much like 90% of my family have some sort of alcoholism or drug addiction. And my father died when I was 2. He got hit by a drunk driver when he was on his Harley. So it was just me and my mom growing up, and my mom was an addict, and she quit using when I was 10, but she got on the methadone program, and she's been on the methadone program since. She's still on it to this day. And and me and my mom had this really close relationship, more of best friends than mother and son. And so when I started smoking weed and drinking behind her back, because I thought she'd be mad, but then I felt bad because I didn't tell her, because I tell her everything. So when I did tell her that I tried smoking weed and drinking for the first time, she was totally cool with it. She was just like, hey, as long as you're not putting anything in your arms or up your nose, then cool, you know. And I took that and ran with it. And I next thing you know, I'm smoking with her. I'm eating LSD with her. I'm eating ecstasy with her. You know, it's and then like she was one of my biggest enablers for sure. But I manipulated myself to be that situation.
Well, yeah, and you're an only child, right?
Yeah. Well, I have an older sister, but she wasn't in our lives for a long time.
Okay.
And yeah, and then I
it was
like
just you and her, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was just most 9% of the time it was me and her, you know. And then high school was good, you know. I had decent grades. And then after high school, you know, I took a year off before I went back, tried going to college, and that's when me and my buddies would travel all around and go to the colleges that all of our best friends would go to, and we would go and party with them, and then we would travel around and follow Fish. We would follow fucking I
remember the mid-2000s.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and we would go to these festivals, and like nitrous played a big part of my life around that time, and ecstasy was a big part, Molly was a big part, you know, and then the first time I tried an opiate was, and I made a promise to myself because I saw what it did to my mom, I saw what it did to my uncle, I saw what it did to so many people, that I made a promise to myself never to fuck with that shit. And then next thing you know, I had surgery in my mouth. And somebody, one of my friends was selling perks at the time, and was like, hey man, just eat one of these, you'll be fine, like the pain will be gone. So I ate one, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the feeling it gave me. And then it was like a slow progression, you know. I was the kind of dude who planned my week. I was like, okay, I'm gonna have one Percocet and smoke 2 blunts every Thursday night when Fantasy Factory came on. You know, the new episode of the Fantasy Factory, I would have a perk and a blunt. You know, it's like, and then it was a progression from that. Then I started smoking them, and then when I started smoking them, then Xanax comes into the picture, and then just a few years later, I'm shooting dope, and I had it all. You know, when I turned 18, I got a lot of money from my father passing, so I had it all. You know, and then next thing you know, I'm 23 years old and I'm broke and I have nothing. And next thing you know, my mom's kicking me out of the house. Next thing you know, I'm fucking selling. The only thing I have left was my car. I traded my car to my drug dealer for 2 ounces of crack and like 100 perk 30s. You know, it's like, then I have nothing, and then I'm fucking homeless, and then I'm sleeping on park benches. And the last 2 years of my addiction in Connecticut, I was sleeping in a porta potty. You know, it was a very quick progression. That when that hit, it was a very quick progression.
Yeah, and make sure I was definitely watching Fantasy Factory and getting high as shit every Thursday night, 2000, like that shit, because it would always make me laugh. But it was always a ritual though. We would go to, you know, I had my own place, but yeah, we would hang out in my one buddy's bedroom. Yeah. And that's where we would just get high. That's when we discovered blues instead of the 10s. Like, oh, we can break this up and snort it. What? Yeah. You know, like.
I learned how to smoke it. I learned how to smoke 30s from MTV True Life. I'm an Addict. The dude, I saw that smoking them, and I was like, oh shit, you could smoke them. So that I was more addicted to the act of smoking it and the taste of it than I was. You know, it was.
You know what's funny is I never smoked them because I was so addicted to sniffing them.
Yeah.
You know, it's that you get like that ritual, you know, and everyone has like a certain ritual. You have your favorite thing that you use with, whether it's a straw or whether it's a method or whatever. Mm-hmm. You get addicted to that, and it's just like second nature to roll out of bed and grab your straw, bend it in half, and drop a pill in and go.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and that's and also then getting sober, it's the fear of what do I do without my rituals, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's a huge fear because then your imagination's fucking with you and telling you all these lies about what you think might happen when you get sober, how boring and look at you now, how boring your life could be.
So that was one of the biggest things that scared me into getting sober. It was my fucked up way of thinking was if my life, if I'm going to be miserable sober, I might as well be miserable high. If that makes any sense, you know, because I like my mom's a sick person, you know, like she's a little fucked up in the head, you know, her perspective of life is a lot different than mine today. So I grew up with her saying life is fucked. People are going to fuck you. You don't trust anybody. you look out for yourself, and that's it. You know what I mean? So I grew up with this thinking of like, okay, life fucking sucks. Like if it's like that, why would I want to deal with that shit and be miserable sober when I could fucking be miserable high? You know? And then when I got sober, you know, it's like, that's why I say it's such a trip to me, because what I've been wanting, like a dream that I had that seemed so far-fetched, because I'm just this little fat white boy that lived in Connecticut, and I had this dream when I was 12. It was just such a far-fetched thing, and it just didn't seem possible. And then when the addiction came into play, like I said, the dream went out the window, you know. And then all of a sudden, when I had that spiritual experience, and then I literally let go of the wheel and I let other people control it, then it falls on my lap. You know,
that was your bottom. You know, your bottom wasn't being homeless in Connecticut. Your bottom was actually asking for help. You know, I talk about it ad nauseum. But like I personally, I always say all of our bottoms are the same. Our bottom is the day that you surrender and you're like, I give up. Tell me how to do this differently. People are 9 months sober, white knuckling it. That they haven't hit their bottom yet because they still think they know better than everybody else. You know, and
I agree with that. Yeah.
You know, I think we all have different lows. We have different speed bumps and lows along.
And my low did keep getting lower for sure. You know, like because I can remember telling myself, okay, I would never be homeless, or okay, I would never share a needle, or it was these lines that I would create, that I would tell myself that I would never cross these lines, and the next thing you know, I'm pushing that line even farther. You know, and yeah, man, it's I like I said, dude, I consider myself very lucky, you know, because of what fell on my lap.
How things turned out for you. One thing led to the other, led to the other, led to the other, but it was the opposite progression. You have a history of progression, bro. Like whether it's going to progress bad or progress good, as long as you're in the right mindset, or if you're in a bad mindset, it's going to go either way, it sounds like.
Totally, yeah. And to answer your question from a little bit ago about like what do I do when I have bad news, or if life's getting a little too hard, you know, it's the way that I think nowadays is because I surround myself with people who have more than me, spiritually, physically, financially, everything. They have more than me, right? So it makes me want to get on their level, if not surpass, right? And spiritually and emotionally, it is more important to me than financially and physically, right? So it's like, when I surround myself with these people, perfect example, it's like, I always go, like if I have to make a decision, or if I'm going through something, this is corny as fuck, but I always think, what would Steve-O do? You know what I mean? Because he's somebody that I look up to. I've looked up to him my whole life, and I'm so grateful that I can call him a friend now, and hit him and his manager up for advice whenever I need to, whether it has to do with recovery or if it has to do with the entertainment side of things.
I'm actually buddies with his manager's brother, because I met him.
Steve.
I used to go to the Comedy Store meeting every Saturday, and Steve was the secretary.
Yeah, I love Steve.
Yeah, he's hilarious. Like all his stories are funny as shit.
Yeah.
His story being on the Mexican Jerry Springer was one of my favorite stories that I've ever heard him tell. Yeah. Like I listen to that shit all the time, but the Comedy Store, like that was like, because like I said, I was doing stand-up comedy before I got sober.
Yeah.
So when I got out there, I was like, I want to be there. Like that was where I want to go, and I want to sit in the original room. I want to like smell. Like actually, Jason and I went to a show after he relapsed, and he was drinking my 2-drink minimums because he had already relapsed. So I was like, I don't give a shit, dude. You can drink my drink minimums. I don't care. Yeah. So, but it was a great night. We saw like Mark Maron, another sober dude. You know, but still like right there in front of my face. Like I'm seeing my heroes like Sebastian Maniscalco and shit like that. Like right here, I could like, you know, like I'm in the front row. I grabbed up early. I was early as shit. Yeah. So I know exactly what you mean. I love that because Steve talks about how he started working basically where Jackass started at the old Hustler building, right?
Yeah. That's where Big Brother started, because well, not started, but Larry Flint bought Big Brother, and that's how Jackass started, was like Big Brother. It was like Tremaine and a bunch
Tremaine was doing Big Brother, and then they got him on to that's what I've heard him tell the story, but you know. So it's such a small world when it comes that way. But yeah, you do exactly what I do. Is I reach out to people who know more than me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, I totally, all the like cliche sayings of the program that I hate. I hate the cliche sayings, but I hate them because they're so true, you know. And it's like, if you work the program, you could live a life beyond your wildest
dreams.
What I
just literally said to you.
You know, it's like I'm living proof of that. You know, I've literally dreamt. When I say dreams, I've had literal dreams of doing what I do. You know, and then saying that, it's like it makes me a firm believer of like manifestation. You know, it's like if I continue doing the next right thing, and I continue to be honest with myself and everybody around me, and I continue to be of service every once in a while, I don't have to worry about a fucking thing.
Yeah.
You know, and everything that I have manifested has come to fucking fruition. You know, it's the trippiest fucking thing. I can't explain how. I can't explain why. For the longest time, I because of how I mentioned my best friend passed away. He overdosed once and it killed him. Right? I have 15 overdoses, and a lot of those overdoses I've ended up in the hospital with tubes down my throat. And so it became like for the first 2 years of my sobriety, I had like survivor's guilt. Because this dude, my best friend, he was the sweetest fucking kid. Wouldn't hurt a fly, and he was so smart, and he was so kind, and I was a piece of shit. I stole, I fucking robbed, I hurt my family. I did all these things, and I survived 15 overdoses. And now I'm living. I'm not just like surviving anymore. Like I'm
thriving.
You know, and so it made me think like, fuck, why me? You know what I mean? So it took a couple years for me to really understand why me, because like my purpose is to be able to make my story public and try to get it out there and try to help as many people as I could, and it's to make people laugh. You know what I mean? It's like I love that shit so fucking much, to just like create content that make people laugh, to whether it's a 60-second video or whether it's a show or whatever, you know. It's like I've gotten countless DMs of people saying like, dude, your story is amazing. I'm struggling with addiction, and to see somebody like you make it to where you're at now, it like inspires me. And
you keep saying luck, bro. You keep saying, you know, luck, but really it's the work. It's you put in work, and you also didn't go back to old ways. You wouldn't have this luck if you were still putting a needle in your arm.
Absolutely.
You know, so it is luck, but you know, at the same time, you know,
I say luck because how the way
discount it for yourself.
Yeah, I say luck because of the way that it just fell in my lap. The reason I still have it is the work. Like I've busted my ass to get to where I'm at right now. Like for me and Zack to have our own house, to have our own office,
production company,
to have my own production company.
That's like my dream from like a long time.
And the beautiful thing about it is me and my partner, we named our production company JTR Productions, and JTR are the initials of our friend that passed, you know. And it's like, and then we're opening a sober living next year, and we're calling it Randall's House. You know what I mean? So it's like everything that we do, it's like it has to tie into John. You know, it has
John?
to, because his name is John.
See that? That's John Johnson Memorial Studios.
Yeah. You know, so it's like, because I know if John was still here, he would be here with us.
Yeah.
He would fucking like, his mind would be blown to see where we're at right now. You know, because like even my manager, best friend, he's here. He's from Connecticut. He lives in Connecticut, but he just got in town yesterday for the first time, and like he could attest. I had these people's pictures on my wall. I had a video camera in my hand the whole time. I knew every line of the Jackass TV show. I knew I could recite every line of the CKY videos. You know what I mean? So it's like to go from that to where we're at now. It's like John would he would lose his shit. You know? So that's why I make sure that everything that we do, and I say we because like me, Tom, and Zack and everything, like, it has to have some part of John in it, you know, and
I love that. Obviously, dude, I feel this, you know, I reached out to my buddy John's sisters. He has 3 of them. He didn't die from an overdose or anything. It was a car accident. But still, like, you know, I want to have his memory live on. I love talking about him. We had some amazing stories together, you know. So that's my way of doing that. But like, I had one of my best friends. He overdosed 6 months into being sober. Him and I got sober at the same time. He went to Florida. I went to LA.
Yeah.
We both came back to our areas eventually after 6 months. He had his relapse and didn't make it from his relapse.
Yeah.
And all I kept telling myself was he taught me a lesson I didn't want him to teach me. You know what I mean? Is that it's not getting any better out there.
Yeah.
You know, and just I have to keep my head down and do what I'm going to do. The last thing I need to do is relapse right now over some shit. That was the last thing Jesse would have won.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Like, my life isn't all peaches and cream and fucking amazing, cool things, and I'm doing amazing shit. It's a big part of it, you know. But it's like working in treatment, you know, being like a program director to that, you know, I started to gain these relationships with these guys, and you know, and there were so many instances where like we've had overdoses and deaths in the house, and I've had to call the parents and all that shit, you know. It's like that kind of thing. It's fucking traumatic. You know what I mean? Like, doing that was one of the gnarliest experiences I've ever had to do in my life, was to have to call a parent.
Something you never thought you would have to do.
No, never.
You're not going to be a copper in New York. You don't have to expect to give that kind of news to a stranger.
Yeah. And so it's like, that kind of situation, it's very fucking traumatic, and it took a lot out of me mentally, and like, but I just keep reminding myself, you know, it's like, I wouldn't be living the life that I live. I wouldn't have the things that I have. I wouldn't have the relationships that I have with my family if I was to fuck up again. You know, like,
I couldn't agree more. I wouldn't have any. I wouldn't have my wife, my kid, my meeting center, my podcast that I love. Yeah, I would be so disingenuous to get fucking high and then try to do this podcast.
Yeah,
that's so like drunk doing this.
I like to say, like, because I'm an addict, you know, I like to say that I love getting high more than anything else on this planet, right? But I really think that I love filming and making people laugh for my content more than getting high, you know, because like I said over and over again, I've dreamt of this shit since I was 10 years old. But when that dream just seemed so far-fetched and went out the window, it didn't seem like it was ever going to happen. So getting high was the next best thing. You know what I mean?
So with the laughter thing, did you realize at all when you found your laughter again? Because I forgot how to laugh. I was a stand-up comedian that, like, I was intelligent enough. You say something funny, I know, JD, you have to fucking laugh at that. And then I laugh with my head. But I didn't start belly laughing again until I got sober and actually feel my stomach hurt from laughter.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned that, you know, like, looking back at the last 5 years of my using, there wasn't really any laughter. You know, there was no fucking laughter. Nothing. I didn't find anything funny, and if I did, I didn't care about it enough to laugh. The only thing that was filling my head was using. You know, it was okay. I have my drugs now. When I'm out, where and how am I going to get it next? It was just filling my head 24/7, 365. Yep. You know. So yeah, I mean, dude, it was like the first few months of sobriety where like making videos with Zack, and I was just like, I was like, holy shit, this is great, you know, like this is, and I really didn't. So I started out like I never had the urge to be in front of the camera. I was always filming. Grew up with a camera. I didn't have any need or want to have the fucking limelight, you know, and then like. I was Zack's filmer for a long time, and then the show that he had, the crew that was on, I was their filmer, and then I think it was a prank video that Zack pranked me, and it went pretty big, and we went to Bam's castle, and I was getting recognized just from getting pranked from that video, and I was like, oh shit. I love attention. I fucking like that. When that happened, I was like, holy shit, I crave this attention. Like, this is like another form of a high, you know? So that's when I was like, okay, let me try out making my own sort of content, you know? And so I started making my own videos here and there, and they started to do okay. Like back then, like I really didn't have like my following now isn't that big, but like back then it was way smaller, you know? But the videos were doing pretty good, and they were getting good feedback. And so I was like, okay, this is kind of fun, you know? And then it was like a snowball effect. was like, oh shit, okay, now I'm working with this person. Oh shit, now I'm working with this person. Oh shit, now we're getting invited to fucking Dylan Francis's house. You know, like, oh shit, now we're in Chicago. They did live stunts. We did it in front of 5,000 people with Wu-Tang. You know, it's like it was just like a fucking snowball effect. It was like one thing after another.
That's a random place to hang out with Wu-Tang, though, Chicago. Like, when I think of Wu-Tang, I think of New York.
It was their 25th anniversary of what's the 36 Chambers?
Okay.
It was their 25th anniversary of that album, so they were on this tour, and one of them was in Chicago, and somehow I think Zack's friends with the person who put that show together. Mm-hmm. So they hit Zack up, and then next thing you know, we're all in fucking Chicago in front of 8,000 people.
And you're like 5 months ago I was shooting Dope, and now I'm like in this cool ass city. Like Chicago in the summer is beautiful.
Yeah.
Like you're in this cool city, and you're like, where the fuck am I? You probably never even been to Chicago.
No, it was my first time. Yeah.
I could imagine. You know, I didn't think you guys were traveling too much if your mom was, you know, a drug addict and a single mom. Yeah. That doesn't scream world traveler. Yeah. So, you know, you get to travel the country now, travel the fucking world, see shit, meet some of your heroes, a bunch of you, like, and work with them. Not even meet them, but work with them too. Yep. Like, that's a totally different thing where they're picking your brain and you're like, what, you want my information?
Yeah. The craziest thing, it's like being able to working with these people, it's a dream. But what is more important to me than actually working with people is actually having a relationship. You know, it's like getting invited to BAMs whenever, you know, before he's getting the help that he needs, or like if Steve-O needs help, you know, just the other day he needed help with his podcast, so I went over there and helped him. You know, it's like, or we got invited to go to Pastrana's house in Maryland, you know, and I got to film at his house, and like it's so many people who I fucking idolized.
To get a phone call for Steve-O to be on that phone, like saying he's calling you, or even if it's Scott and you know it means Steve-O. Yeah. You know, even if it's Scott calling you know what that means.
Yeah, you know, like, and it's so fucking wild to me, man. And it's like
that's a great podcast too. If anyone's looking for a good Steve-O's Wild Ride, that's a great fucking podcast.
It's great. It's so fucking And then like perfect example, you know, it's like I grew up listening to Turbo Negro. It's a band from Norway, and I was such a big fucking fan, dude. And the lead singer, especially the lead singer, his name was Hank, right? And I was the biggest Hank fan. And when I didn't have Instagram before I got sober, you know, so like when I started doing all this stuff with Zack, I started an Instagram from scratch, and and I didn't think the idea of like going to find all the people who I looked up to, like music wise, to like go find their Instagrams to follow them, you know, that I didn't even come across my mind. And then all of a sudden, like a year, you know, maybe 2 years into it, Hank started following me, and I almost started crying. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm not even following him. Like, what the fuck? So I went and followed him real quick, and then I was gonna DM him to be like, yo, dude, I'm a huge fan. Before I even had the chance to do that, he DM'd me and he's like, yeah, I'm a fan of yours. And I was just like,
yeah. You go to your DMs and you see you have one waiting in your request, and you're like, what the fuck?
Exactly. You know, it's like that kind of shit. Just like, that's the reason why I know that I can't fuck up. I can't. I'm terrified of losing what I have. That's why it's like because getting sober isn't just putting the drugs and alcohol down. It's the behaviors.
Yeah, that's the first thing you have to do.
Yeah.
We weren't drugs and alcohol weren't our problem. They were the solutions to all our problems. So now we have problems, we have to have new solutions.
Exactly. So it's like the little behaviors that like lead to that kind of shit. It's like the little white lies, or the little not helping somebody when you know you could. It's like that kind of things that terrifies me.
Bro, I had a guy, he comes to my meetings sometimes for AA in the morning, but then he had to do some time because he missed too many mandatory meetings, so he had to go back in. And then he hit me up and he's like, hey man, I was over at the Weekenders, but I forgot my paper those days. Can I come by and have you sign for him? And I was like, absolutely not. I was like, I wasn't at those meetings, dude. I was like, if you want to come and have a meeting with me unscheduled, I'll mark it down for an hour once it's done. But I'm not marking you down for them. Exactly. Don't worry, they'll mark you down. Go back there next weekend. They're going to remember you were there because it was New Year's Eve weekend, and they're going to remember you were there, and they'll mark you down because I know he was full of shit. He wasn't there on January 1st. Fuckhead. Like, you barely show up to here at 9 a.m. on time. You tell me you were there on January 1st.
Yeah, it's little shit like that, dude. It's like another perfect example. It's like when I went back east a few weeks ago, and one of my buddies was like, "Hey man, could you pee in a cup for my buddy because he's on probation and he started smoking weed again and like he needs clean pee and like at first I was like, yeah, it's fine, and then I started thinking about it. I was like, you know what, I can't do that, because one, it's like kind of enabling him to keep doing that, and two, it's like that like I'm helping him manipulate the system, and like I just can't be a part of shit like that. Like, as corny as it is, or I have to walk like a straight and narrow line. I fucking have to, because
nobody would even know that you did that but you. But then the problem is we're addicts, and then we get into our heads, and then the relapse starts in our heads. And then we talk ourselves, and we're like, oh, I was dumb. I shouldn't have did that. And then next thing you know, you're doing this and you're doing that, and all the behaviors from the addiction, like you said, come out. And next thing you know, you're like, well, I might as well get a high because I'm doing everything else the same now.
Yeah. Exactly, man. It's like the second I have to walk that straight and narrow, because the second I take one step off, my brain just starts going boom, 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 boom. Or if I go this way, it's boom, 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 boom. And it's just like who knows what's gonna happen. Maybe I won't fucking relapse from these behaviors. Maybe I can have one fucking beer here and there. Maybe I can have a fucking glass of wine with some steak. Maybe I can, and it won't fuck with me. Maybe, but I don't want to fucking risk it.
Yeah, it's not worth the maybe. It's not worth the maybe.
Yeah, no fucking way. Like I know that I love getting loaded so fucking much that.
And trust me, once you feel that warmth of alcohol again, it's a wrap, bro. It's like, all right,
Alcohol wasn't even my thing, but it's like that's why it's like, oh, maybe I could have a fucking glass of wine. Maybe when I'm on a fucking plane, maybe I can drink some fucking some shots. You know what I mean? But it's like I'm not willing to risk what I have. Just for that, for fucking a couple hours worth of fucking warmth,
it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing, bro. And obviously, it shows and how excited you are to talk about what you're doing, and talk about, where you've been and how you got to where you are now. Like, a lot of people struggle. A lot of people are being brokered. Brokered means that people are putting you in rehab and getting paid for it, and then you leave and it doesn't matter because they already got paid. Like, and it happens, and, we're treated like fucking dollar signs when we're addicts.
Yeah.
So you're doing the fucking deal, bro. You're living a life beyond your wildest dreams. I see a schedule on your mirror behind you. You got shit going on, bro. You have a lot of things, keeping you busy that you're obsessing over, but they're healthy obsessions that are feeding your soul and not healthy obsessions that are landing you in a hospital with tubes down your throat.
Exactly.
So thanks so much, dude. I appreciate it. Any links you want to share with me, I'll put them in the bio or description, whether you're listening or watching.
Just follow my Instagram at Skinny Vinny. I have some projects coming up in the very near future. One should be released in the next few months. I can't really say much about them, but just there's some projects that are coming out that I'm really excited about, and just keep fighting the good fight.
That's fucking awesome, man.